On this episode, I quickly speak to Dave Gordon of the Oilers Rig website. They're holding a fundraiser for the MS Society this week, and he gives a quick update. I also speak to Kathleen. She's an MS warrior from Calgary, and she's got a great story to tell, so stick around. So I have to say I'm pretty excited about this particular episode because I don't have to do a lot of talking. I have two guests. One, Dave is it's a brief conversation. It's just to give an update on a great event that the Oilers Rig website's having on Friday night at On the Rocks. It's it's our third annual fundraiser, and the proceeds of which go directly to the MS Society. So hopefully people listening to this go out and support it. We'll make sure you have all the coordinates of how to get there. And then the second part of this podcast, and the most important part, is my conversation with Kathleen. And I was supposed to have this podcast up earlier this month. This one's kind of late, and I apologize. It's just been a crazy month. I had to go to California. I know, poor me, right? But I had to go to California for work, and then I've been really kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of the training for the really long run. So, it's just been a hectic month. So it's kind of getting out a little bit later than I'd hoped, but hey, I'm getting it done anyway. So. And really quickly before I run the quick little interview I did with Dave and then the interview with Kathleen, interestingly enough, I got contacted about 2 weeks ago now. A lady from the Edmonton Examiner contacted me, which is a local community newspaper here in Edmonton, and for an interview. And I just assumed, and naturally when I first started reading the email, I thought, it's probably for the run, I just naturally, because that's the only thing I've ever in my life been interviewed for has been the run. And it was actually, she wanted to interview me about this podcast, which just kind of surprised me, to put it mildly. So we sat down I think it was last Wednesday, and and I gave her an interview and talked about the podcast and how it came to be. We actually, fortunately enough for me, I got to throw in some plugs for the run there too. And that interview should be in the Edmonton Examiner this Wednesday. So if you're interested in that, I'm sure you can find a copy and check it out. Or I'm sure you can find it on their website. And when I have coordinates for that, I'll post them on my website and tweet it out and that. But anyway, here's my conversation with Dave Gordon of the OilersRig.com. I just wanted to get him on here real quick to talk about the Oilers Rig Live for MS, which is taking place at On the Rocks this Friday night. And I will make sure that the link for tickets is in the companion notes. And if you want tickets and can't figure out how to find them, just get a hold of me and I'll put you in the right direction. So anyway, here's my conversation with Dave Gordon of the Oilers Rig website, and then it will be followed by my interview with Kathleen. I wanted to talk to Dave Gordon from the Oilers Rig website and get it on this podcast this week because he's got a really cool event coming up this Friday at On the Rocks in Edmonton, Alberta. So Dave, thanks for joining me.
Hey Sean, thanks for having me. It's great to be back once again on the podcast.
I guess I should have mentioned that in the intro that Dave was, I think, guest number 3 on the podcast, and I think we mentioned it at the time, but Dave helps to run a Oilers fan site, blog site called the OilersRig.com, and it's the third annual event for the MS, right?
Yeah, it is. It's the third annual. We call it the Oilers Rig Live for MS, and we've been doing it, obviously, third year now, and doing our best to raise some money, and we're hoping this year will be our best year yet.
And how much money did you guys raise last year, Dave?
Last year was about $3,000. So, we had. It's hard to say how many people showed up really, but there was a bunch, and we have a great silent auction, and through that we raised just around $3,000, and that went to all of it to the MS Society.
Yeah, and actually, and the Oilers rig was gracious enough to donate $1,000 to my run last year, and the proceeds came from this event, which is why I wanted to get it on the podcast, and well, not the only reason, obviously, to support the MS Society, but why I really felt strongly about getting it on and getting the word out this week. So if anyone out there is thinking about going out on Friday night, why don't you come down to the On the Rocks and check out the event. So Dave, just kind of give me some background on how it started and how it came to be.
Well, we just thought, there's a few of us that manage the Oilers rig, and we thought that, we had a voice to do something for the community in Edmonton, and MS became sort of something we all got behind because, well, I got diagnosed with MS in 2013, 14, and it was something everybody got behind. Regardless of the MS, we just wanted to do something for charity, and that became the forefront.
Just listening to the dates, when you guys did the first one, were you diagnosed yet?
Yes, I was.
Oh, okay.
So and not officially, but it become, and you know how the story goes, Sean.
Yeah.
You go into the hospital and all that goes, and the doctors tell you, well, I think you've got MS, right? And you and I have had multiple conversations about that, and I'm sure your listeners can feel the same.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we just decided right away, we thought about doing the Stollery or the Cross Cancer Institute, and everybody that works with the site said, no, Dave, we have to do it for the MS Society. So that's just the way it's gone, and that's the way we'll do it every year. And like I said, last year $3,000. This year we have a goal of $5,000. I think we're going to surpass that, and it'll just continue to go on.
Well, I mean, I know all about setting a goal of $5,000 and how it can balloon past that. So, and for those of you listening, I will have an item that needs to be bid on that Dave was said I could slide into the silent auction. There's some time sensitive items in it that needs to get auctioned off. So, and it was graciously donated by Molson of Canada. So.
Well, I just want, and people should know too, Sean, that this year we've decided that we're going to donate 50% of our proceeds to your run, and the other 50% are going to go to the MS Society through my entry in the bike tour.
That's awesome, but you know what surprises me about that, Dave, when we were talking before we started recording, is that my run does ruin people's lives. So I appreciate the fact that I appreciate the fact that even though I ruin your life sometimes, that you're still willing to do that.
Well, I keep thinking, Sean, that maybe if I can raise enough money, I'll get out the obligations of running. But I know that you won't let me off the hook on that either.
Well, you know what? I don't do it because I want to hurt you or something. I just think it's a really great. I think the optics are great. If the people that are running, if some of the people that are running actually have MS, I think it's no different than the bike tour, right? Like when we all got called up on stage last year because we're the riders with MS, right? It's empowering, and I mean, if you told me one year that you can't do it, I'm not gonna camp outside your house and throw eggs or something, but.
I'm not sure about that.
I will always pester. I'm really good at that. I mean, I work in sales. Pestering is the whole job. That's what you do. So.
Yeah. You know what? It's fantastic what you did last year, and obviously I didn't participate last year, but I saw the pictures. I know you, and I know the people that were involved in holding the run last year and everything that went into it, and I told you this year I'm going to run. I don't know. My goal is to run 5 kilometers. I'm hoping I can run more. But it really is, and you mentioned being up on stage last year at the bike ride. Most of us aren't like, I don't know if you follow Michael Landsberg on TSN, but we're sick, not weak. Like there's a large amount of us that can do something to raise money to help find a cure. And there's some of us that can't, and you can't blame those people, the people that can't. But there are a large amount of us that we can do what we can, and while we can do what we can, we should, I think.
Well, one of my big things in life is if you can do something, you probably should, and which is kind of my mantra with this run. Because I can do it, I probably should do it. Do I want to do it? Not this. No. If I'm being honest, I mean it's a lot of work. It's a really long day, but if you can do something, you probably should. And I'm in a position where I can do something, and I think that's the great thing about the Oilers Rig website is that you guys are in a position to do something. You have a podium to speak from, and you have a substantial following of people that read on that website. So why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you try and do something positive? Because there's a lot of negativity, and especially these days in Alberta, it's not the greatest, and I think it's fantastic what you guys do, and in my small way, my small part on the Oilers Rig website, writing about the Golden Bears, I'm happy to be a part of it because I think you guys are trying to do something positive. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, it is, and like I said, it is. It really is about trying to do something positive. As soon as you look at, we started what we do as a hobby, and now I think we've got close to a dozen writers on our site, and really all of us, none of us are doing it full time as a job, and so to have a voice out there that people read, why not try and do something good from it, and like I said, so when we decided to do charity events, and MS was picked, the MS Society, I almost felt guilty to a point, and I know you and I have talked about this, but why not? Like, I was flattered when the other people working with me at the rig said, Dave, it's got to be the MS Society. It has to be. And really, anything you can do when you have a voice, when you have people reading and interested in what you're saying, and if you can make some money, then why not?
Well, I mean, the thing is about if you have like season ticket holders and not reading your site, I mean, they're obviously, if you got season tickets to the Oilers, you're not you're doing well enough, right? Regardless of what section you're in or whatnot. I mean, if you can afford to spend $3, $4, $5, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 or more a year on tickets, I mean, you can afford to donate to a good cause, and if what you guys are doing at the Oil Rig can direct some of that money towards MS, I mean, you and I are the beneficiaries in the end because we live with it, right? But I think that raising awareness is the key thing, and like I said, I really appreciate what you guys do, and I hope you keep doing it, and in any way I can support, even putting a little blurb on my podcast if that helps get people out to the event, that's fantastic. So, do you have any closing thoughts about the event or anything else?
Well, I sure hope people come out, and if they're listening to this, it's going to be a blast every year, but it's great. If there's something, if you're thinking, hey, maybe I can go there, maybe I'll do something else. This year we had absolutely fantastic draw. So we've got a couple signed Oilers jerseys, and we're gonna do a draw for them, and the way the draw is gonna work is gonna be really interesting. I can't give too much away right now, or the other people at the rig might lynch me for it. But it's really, we have Connor McDavid, Jordan Eberle, Leon Draisaitl, and I'm just saying, just showing up at the event and a little bit of money is going to get you a great chance to walk away with one of those jerseys.
Well, that's fantastic, and Dave, I'm going to let you go. I mean, I didn't want to hold you too long. I know what you've got kids, I've got kids. It's Sunday night. It's a big night, but I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. Any final thoughts? Okay, so where do people find tickets for the event at On the Rocks on Friday?
They can go right to theoilersrig.com, and on the page, you'll see a big advertisement for Oilers Rig Live for MS. Otherwise, you can check our Twitter at the Oilers Rig, on our Facebook, and there's tons of advertisements.
And if somebody wants to follow you on social media, how do they find you, Dave?
At theoilersrig.com on Twitter, on Facebook at the Oilers Rig, or not without the at, and you name it, Dave Gordon on Facebook.
What about your personal Twitter handle? I've always wanted to ask you about that, so why don't you give that out?
So my personal Twitter handle is at Rusty Knuckler, and that just it's an old nickname given to me by a friend. We get into it, but I'm not sure that this is the kind of audience we need to have.
Fair enough. Okay, Dave, thanks again for talking with me, and hopefully everyone sees you next Friday night at On the Rocks. So up next is my conversation with Kathleen, and as you'll hear in the interview, Kathleen actually found me through the podcast and my blog, and as she alludes to it when we talk, is that I kind of started this podcast right kind of when she was going through the process of getting diagnosed, and it was really fascinating chat with Kathleen. I mean, she's from Calgary, and she was living in London when things happened, and she's got a fascinating perspective on MS and diet and how she's coping with it, and I'm really, really happy that she reached out, and she's actually the first person to ever appear on the podcast as a guest who was a listener first, and I think it's pretty cool that 12 episodes in that I get that opportunity to reach out to somebody who's listening to it, and again she mentions it in the talk that when she was living in London, she would be in her place of where she lived, and she'd have it on. Her roommates would hear, and it's kind of mind blowing. So, Kathleen, thanks very much for taking the time to talk to me, and your story's inspiring. So, thanks very much. And here's Kathleen. Okay, so I'm talking today with Kathleen, and Kathleen has been gracious enough to talk to me for the podcast. And Kathleen, you're in Calgary, correct?
I am, yeah.
Okay. The way I always like to start these talks off is, why don't you just tell me about your journey with MS so far?
Sure. Well, it's been a short one so far. I'm sort of somewhat uniquely was diagnosed early last summer at the age of, I was almost 45 at the time. And so when I went through it with, the neurologist to check, because usually they'll say, over the past how many years, have you had symptoms, and what kind of symptoms have you had? And I had nothing, like literally nothing. And so I think that's a little bit unusual. And so I do consider myself quite new to all of this. So basically, I just started having issues with my left eye, and I thought, because I worked all the time, I worked at a big bank, and I'm a lawyer, and so I'm always reading documents, and I just thought maybe it was eye strain or something, or considering I'm not 20 years old, I thought maybe I needed reading glasses or something, and so I just persevered through it, and then suddenly my vision went double, like kind of overnight. And that's when it's a good idea to go to the doctor, figure out what's going on. So after I got tested for like literally everything, including like a list of things that are like all related to vision, but a little bit embarrassing. To be honest, I had a moment where I was actually like praying for syphilis, because I thought that one's easy. Takes a minute antibiotics.
Yeah.
Don't know how it happened, but that's how crazy it is, when you're, choosing between something treatable and something chronic. So I was diagnosed with optic neuritis in the left eye and 6-nerve palsy in the right eye, and had some scans, and they saw lesions on the brain. And about a month later, maybe about a month and a half later, I got optic neuritis in the right eye.
You had it in both eyes?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So the left one was really starting to heal, and the right one started to go, not as bad as the left one. And and then after that, the drill, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have the 2 separate episodes, and they say you have MS. So I kind of knew, like, the second I went to the doctor and they suggested it, I just had a feeling that I had it. So.
How far were the episodes apart?
I was about a month and a half.
Oh, so they were close? Oh, okay.
Yeah, really close. I haven't had any since. I get kind of niggling things. Like, I get that, I don't know if you get the kind of electrified feeling in your feet.
My feet are permanently numb.
Oh, they're numb. Yeah, mine aren't numb. They just occasionally I feel like there's an electric current running through them. And it only happens at night, which is irritating. Like, when I'm going to bed.
That'd be tough.
Like that. And the other thing, I wonder if you've ever had this, because, again, I'm still pretty new to this, right? And I don't know a lot of people that have MS. But you have weird sensations sometimes, like, when you're sitting chatting to me right now, like, are you thinking about your arms? Like, you're not really aware of your body when you're just having a chat with somebody. But sometimes I just feel very aware of my right arm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sometimes it has an ache, and sometimes it has, like, kind of pins and needles. But apart from those kind of sensory symptoms and my eyes occasionally doing very crazy things, I haven't had another relapse since May, which is great.
Yeah. So, you're kind of new to this, but so the meds that you're on now, was that your first or did they just switch you to them?
So I didn't. So I was living in London, England, when this all started happening, and I was in the process. I had just received was in the process of receiving an offer for this job, which is kind of funny. It's kind of ironic that it came together at the same time, because I weirdly had this, like, inkling to come home a year before, and you do kind of wonder if there's something in your body that knows something before you do. And so I was living in London, England, and because it takes months for them to get the meds together and put you all through the tests and everything, I couldn't go on them right away. So then I had to wait till I came here. So I started taking them in November of this year. I started taking Tecfidera.
And you said you're tolerating it okay?
Yeah, it's been good. I was absolutely petrified to go on it because I don't take Tylenol. Like, I don't take anything. And I've been doing a lot of, as I know you do, a lot of research around food and all of that, trying to, I wanted to be one of those people that didn't go on the meds. But after you have 6 neurologists tell you you're at the perfect stage to go on these, and this will alter the course of your disease, I really felt I couldn't, fight with that much experience. And it actually, in a way, the MS nurse was really the one that clinched it for me.
Yeah. Well,
No,
I was just going to say that, I'm going to be 10 years in November since my big attack. And when I initially got diagnosed, for the first 2 years, maybe 3, about 2.5 years, I didn't take any med. I just did diet and exercise. What clinched it for me was I got married in August 2010, and we got pregnant right away. And my wife and I went to the neurologist, and I had actually switched neurologists, and he was more patient with me for not being on the meds, and which certainly helped, because it really, I think when you make that decision, it helps if there's the people that are giving you the information are supportive and not judging. That was when I started. I think, as you know, I started on Copaxone, and I was on it for a couple of years, and then I had a mild flare up 2.5 years ago, maybe, not quite. And that's when I got switched to Tecfidera. So, but did you find it very hard on your stomach, or?
No, so I did what they said about, fat and protein before, like sort of 15 minutes before you take it. And I'm still doing that, even though they say you don't necessarily have to do that after you get used to it. I do turn beet red, though, occasionally. And there's no timing to it. And then it doesn't happen every day. And it's just completely random.
Same here.
It's to a point where, like, if somebody sees you on the street, they'd be like, are you having a heart attack? Like, what is happening to you? You're that sick.
Yeah, no, I actually had one yesterday, and I hadn't had one for weeks, and I'm just
can come and go, right?
Yeah, and I was just sitting at the kitchen table. I think we were having lunch, and I looked over at my wife and I said, "I'm flushing pretty good." And she's, "Yeah, I can see it." So I just usually I go and find the coldest room in the house, and I'll just kind of hang out there until it subsides, because you get really warm, obviously, because all that, right? So how, what did you know about multiple sclerosis before did you have any family history? Were you even not aware of it, or did it kind of?
No, I don't have any family history. There's a lot of autoimmune conditions in my family, and depending on who you listen to, some people think they're all kind of interconnected, but nobody with MS. And so generally when I thought MS, I thought, like everybody does, I thought sort of Richard Pryor, Annette Funicello, really hard cases. And but then I did know some people who are living really, really well with it, and there are quite a few people that are, and I just thought, I'm just going to focus on those people and figure out what they're doing. And obviously only so much of this is in your control, right? You can't expect that you're going to control it, but there are things you can control in your own life and your own lifestyle that make you feel like you have more control over it, I think. And so I mean, initially you do go straight to, I'm going to be in a wheelchair and I'm going to be blind and I'm going to not be able to speak, and you really go down that road. And then as every day goes by and you just get used to the idea, I just try to focus on, I don't think I'm going to get there. Like I try to think that I'm not going to be in that position. I'm going to work until I'm 65, and it's not going to hamper me. But in the back of my mind, I'm prepared. Well, as prepared as you can be. But I understand that stuff can happen. So I don't think I'm in denial, but I'm focusing on, like, trying to ward it off by thinking good things.
Well, a weird thing that happened to me, and it really became clear to me, it's just kind of interesting what you're talking about, because I don't know if you saw that BBC article last week.
Everybody has sent it to me, I'm sure.
And, it sounds pretty promising, and it seems to be, and you're new to this, but it seems like every couple of years something comes around where you think, okay, they're just going to figure it out, and that's it. They're going to cure it, and I'm just going to move on with my life. And it's hard not to get excited. But what I found really interesting when I was reading that, because a lot of the stuff that comes out every couple of years that claims to be a cure, is that when you really scratch the surface, it doesn't look like there's much meat to it. Where with that one, it actually looks like there potentially could be something to it. And I was sitting there and I was talking to my wife, and she said, "Is something bugging you today?" And I said, "Yeah. What if they cure it? Like, what the hell do I do now?" And it's such a weird thing to say.
It's such a big part of your life.
Yeah, like I've never, I never wanted to be defined by it, and I never wanted people to look at me as a sick person. But I guess that over 10 years, at some point, it does become part of your identity. And with doing the run and doing the blog and the podcast and the interactions with other people with MS, it's become a huge part of my life, because I would suspect since you're a lawyer, you would have a passion for law. You must, to go to school and work and then put that kind of effort into something, you have to have some sort of passion for it.
Or you did an arts degree and you didn't know what to do next. That's a lot of us.
Well, I have an arts degree, and I just decided to go into sales. So
There you go.
Yeah.
Out of your arts degree.
Yeah, so for me, the thing that kind of, outside of having a family, that kind of gets me up in the morning, is the stuff that I do to raise money or write on my blog or and that. And I honestly thought, well, geez, what do I do now? And because I like doing this kind of stuff. I really, it's fun.
You just have to turn your energy to something else, right? So you can do all of this exact. This is getting very ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
But you could do all of the same stuff, but pick a new cause, and you don't have to be the person with that condition, right? You just pick a new cause. I think you can do all the same things that you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I picked it already. I mean, if they cure MS, if this all turns out, and then because it won't be like if this all turns out in double-blind studies and all that, and it turns out that this is going to be a new treatment, it'll be 5 to 10 years before.
Absolutely.
Right. But I've already decided if they do cure it, then I'll switch gears to breast cancer, because I had an aunt pass away recently with that, and so that's where I'll go. That's where I'll put my efforts. So. So so that you're now that you're new to it, I don't want to make you think that, oh geez, but I have a weird perspective on it, because I honestly think that it happened to me for a reason, I guess. And anyway, so what's your,
because people do say things like that, and I'm not a fatalist per se, so I don't, because a lot of really terrible things happen, right? So I don't necessarily believe that everything happens for a reason, but I do think that when stuff happens and how you react to it, you can get a lot out of bad things. There are certain things that you don't get anything out of because they're just horrible. But I do think that this is one that it does cause you to kind of reshift and refocus and appreciate the things that your body can do, right? Like knowing that there might be a time bomb at some point. It makes you appreciate what's around you. It makes you appreciate people more around you. Not that I didn't before, and I'm sure you're the same, but I don't know, smaller things are more interesting to me now than they were before. And the other thing I really like about it, and I think you're the same just listening to your podcast, I really enjoy the science of it. I find that part fascinating. I find the whole, nutrition, behavior, exercise, combination, all of that, and how that can alter the course of, any disease to varying degrees and with varying degrees of success. I find that all really interesting. So in some ways I've said to my friends, I'm kind of a good person for this to happen to, because at least I find it really interesting. And I find it really interesting to hear other people's stories, whether it's about MS or something similar. I went for lunch with a friend today who had some crazy neurological stuff happening over the course of several years, and they still don't know what it was. And they don't know if it was he was traveling a lot through Asia, so they don't know if it was a crazy virus or what it was. But it was just really interesting to hear not just what he went through, but also how he thinks differently about things now. It's just, I don't know, it's a little bit freeing in that way. So. Well,
you mentioned the science of it. I am actively trying to get an interview with the MS Society through the bike tour, because I raised all the money. There was a dinner in late November. One of the doctors from the U of A spoke, and I've been bugging the guys at the MS Society to try and get it so I can talk to him, so I can get him on the podcast, because I want to ask him specifically, what about this BBC story? What are some of the current stuff? Because I think that, like you said, I'm like you. I like to know what's coming up and what's going on, and because it sounds like you're probably like me. You've searched around and you've probably read all kinds of stuff about,
absolutely,
all the different theories about things that you can do, and the most interesting one that I've read, and I don't know if you read it on the blog or not, was about the solar radiation. Yeah, that one, and actually the lead. One of the scientists on that paper actually came across my blog and emailed me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was kind of neat. And I tried getting him on the podcast, but he declined. But, say la vie, you do what you do, right?
There's lots of for you to chat with.
How about exercise? Like, are you able to exercise, keep active?
I am. So I've been lucky, except for in the very beginning. I don't have fatigue. That's not something that I have, and I don't know if that's just my disease or if it's some of the things that I'm doing. I really don't know. I don't think anybody knows. I haven't been as good as I was when I was in London. I haven't got into much of a routine, but I am doing Pilates. I go to the gym when I can, and I do find the more I exercise, the better I feel. Because back in the day, right, they wanted you to rest, and that was the thing. It was like, don't overheat yourself, rest, don't exert yourself, and I think for some people, they probably do have to know when to kind of time out. But I find for me, the more exercise I do, the better off I am. Particularly if I do bouts of, like, I occasionally go to a spin class. I feel like $1 million after a spin class.
Well, it's interesting you say, because I find that when I run, even if I'm having a fatiguey day, about 10 minutes in, give or take the day, that's when I start to feel the symptoms kind of subside a bit, like the numbness of my fingertips, numbness of my feet, and I don't feel like I have MS anymore. I feel kind of normal, and that's the addicting part to me, is because it's a part of my day where I don't have to feel sick, I guess.
Absolutely. And my neurologist, the London neurologist, he's huge on exercise. Like, he really, and I think he's quite well known. And he basically, he said it helps to rewire things. So he's a huge proponent of sleep and exercise, as much as you can get of both.
Do you find that you sleep more now?
I find I did in the beginning, for sure. I also went through quite a stint where I was having a lot of trouble sleeping. And I don't know if it was anxiety or if it was, the headaches that went with all the eye issues, or I don't know what it was, but I would wake up at 2 a.m. and then I was awake. And I've always been one of those lucky people that puts my head on the pillow and, doesn't wake up until I'm up. So, but I'm certain my sleep patterns are kind of back on track, which is good. And I'm not sleeping more. Like I said, I don't really have the fatigue issue, which I think is a bit unusual. I think that's usually something most people have, but I did in the beginning, definitely. I definitely had that. I couldn't sleep enough in the beginning.
Now, outside of the medication and the exercise, do you have any coping strategies that you're using or that help you?
Yeah, I find one thing when I get anxious, which is the last thing you want to do, and if I'm having really bad sort of body symptoms, I do find meditation makes a big difference for me. So I'll just put on, on my iPad, I'll just go on YouTube and put on any kind of relaxing meditation. It doesn't have to be specific. Although I find it very hard to find a voice that doesn't drive you crazy. You need to find somebody's voice to listen to for 30 minutes. But I think that would make a difference for anybody, because it all sounds very woo-woo, but there is quite a bit of evidence now that meditation has a really, scientifically beneficial effect on the brain.
Now, you mentioned being anxious. Are you an anxious person by nature? The reason why I ask that, a lot of the MSers that I've talked to, anxiety seems to come up, and I'm just wondering if that's something that you experience.
I don't think I'm super anxious. I would say, like, when it comes to work, I'm probably a bit neurotic. That's for sure. Like, I don't like to be in trouble, and I worry about things, and I go to a little bit of disaster thinking at work. So probably in a work context, I probably do have a bit more anxiety than some people. But personally, I don't think I do. I don't think in my personal life I'm not that anxious. Part of that is a feature of age, right? The time you get into your 40s, you really do. I was a lot more neurotic when I was 20, for sure.
Well, I turned 40 in October, so if you tell me that the anxiety gets better in a couple months, then that's
Hopefully,
good.
Yeah, hopefully it does. Because they had a study published recently about how 40-year-olds, 40-something-year-olds are much happier than 18-year-olds. So, and I can attest to that.
So I've only got 9 months to go, and then everything will just...
freaking out, and then you hit 40, and it's all steady from there.
Perfect.
It's all sailing.
One question for you that I like to ask is, now, once you got the diagnosis, how did your family react? Like, how did your family, close friends, how did they react?
So differently. So my family is fairly stoic, so it was pretty calm reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty, and my mother's had everything under the sun, so yeah, so that was pretty calm. They were very supportive and very supportive of me coming home. That was an important thing. I had a couple friends instantly burst into tears, which was adorable,
Mm-hmm.
and which is very sweet. But everybody's been spectacular. Like you really do. I was going to say you really do know who your friends are, but honestly, everybody has reacted really, really well. And I always joke, especially when because I'll have days where I don't really know that I have it, right? Where I don't really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think sometimes that when I'm feeling really good, I'm like, oh, this is the best because I get the sympathy from this thing, but I feel fine. It's small victories, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, everybody's been really good, really, really helpful. I know, it's really sweet is I find that my friends' husbands have been really lovely. Like they can get quite protective of you,
Mm-hmm.
which is nice and want to help you. So.
Yeah, I can be honest with you. No one's ever been very protective of me, but I think it's because I look like a bouncer. So
Look like you could take care of yourself.
yeah. No, and I always get the common thing I get is people say, "We always forget that you have it. Always forget that you have MS." And and the only time I have to remind people is sometimes in the morning I have to tell my wife it takes me forever to wake up, like really wake up.
Yeah.
And when you've got two little kids like just on you, like daddy, 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 it's just like, ugh, I can't. And if I'm having a fatigue day where I just, you're lucky you're not experiencing those right now. In mine, I actually find that the more I exercise, the less I get those fatigue days. The more I just can kind of live normally, and I find that the harder I push myself, that part of it's easier, which doesn't really make any sense, but it is.
And I find sometimes when you really do now, keep in mind you're going to do this 80-kilometer run, which is extraordinary. But I find if I have a bit of time where I think, oh, I'm going to travel and then I'm going to do this, and while I'm traveling, I'm going to do this, and I make all these plans for when I'm traveling. And this particularly happened when I was living in Europe because I went away a lot. And suddenly you kind of get stopped dead in your tracks in the middle of doing this. I find when I travel, I definitely have worse symptoms because you're out of your routine, you don't sleep as well, and you just expect you're going to go do all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't do your nice, tidy, relaxed, you have kids, so I don't know how relaxed that is, but but when you get out of your routine, I find I will get hit with something.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know what happened to me is December was a really, really busy month. I actually manage a sales team, and we've got offices in Calgary and Vancouver, and I did a 2-week stint where I did a week in Vancouver and then a week in Calgary. Came home, about a week goes by, then we went right into Christmas time, so we go to Red Deer to my in-laws, and then there's time with my family, and I hit the wall about halfway through Christmas pretty hard, where lack of a better way of putting it, I was ready to tell everybody that they could just go piss off and leave me alone, because I'm the same as you. When I get out of my routine, it's really hard on me.
It's pretty much, when I travel, it's guaranteed. It's guaranteed something's going to happen. I went to Vegas with my family for Christmas, and by the second day of just kind of wandering around everywhere, eating not particularly good food, I just took the night off. I just said, you guys have to go out, and I'm just going to hang out in the hotel, because I could just feel like things kicking up again. Yeah. So I'm going back to London on middle of February. And one of the worst things is that overnight flight. Like, I just absolutely dread sitting in an airplane seat, eating horrible food, and having to basically be up all night because I can't sleep on a plane.
I can't either.
Yeah. No. And it kind of will kick me off, and I'm going to have to just when I get there, I'm just going to have to take a little break, take it easy, and try not to derail my vacation.
So do you get jet lag pretty bad?
I get terrible jet lag, like terrible, shocking, terrible. It takes a week for me to recover from jet lag.
So you go there, you have to kind of recover for a week, then you can get into your holiday, and then...
Yeah, I'm hoping it. So the flight over there is much worse because you do have to do it overnight. Coming here isn't too bad. So the good thing about going over there is that I don't have to work. So it was really hard when I had to go back and then go to work. That was just like torture. So just knowing that I can kind of hang out and chill out will probably make it faster. And sleeping pills are your friend, for sure, for that. I just do like the over-the-counter ones, and that kind of helps to reset you a little bit faster.
How are you with heat, temperature?
I had a little spell where I was getting really overheated. That was when I first moved back here, and it wasn't even so much the external heat. It was just I was overheating myself, which is weird since I'm the coldest person who's ever lived. But that went away. But I do, for me, it's cold.
Okay.
Like cold definitely will give me lots of, like I lose a lot of coordination from the cold. And then I get that sort of really hot, kind of prickly feeling kind of all over my legs from the cold. So yeah, cold definitely affects me more than the heat.
For me, it's with temperature, it's weird. I don't mind it if it's hot outside. Like when I did the run last year, it was 28 degrees, and which was too hot for the run. I got dehydrated about 60 or 70 kilometers in, but that heat outside doesn't bother me as long as there's air moving around me. I'm okay. It's if I'm inside and it's too hot, that's when I just like my skin just starts to crawl. So that's why I ask, because it seems to be the temperature affects everyone differently, but it does seem to be a trigger. So now you mentioned diet, and so are you following a specific diet?
So I did because fortunately even when I took some time off of work when this first happened, and so even though I had issues in my eyes, the double vision was corrected by some really attractive prisms put in the back of my glasses, which just made me look like a complete dork. So I actually was able to still read quite a bit, and so I tripped across all of this stuff, Dr. Embry and Terry Walls and all of those people, and have tried to incorporate a good chunk of that stuff. I'm not as strict as I was. I'm sure you were the same, where you go through a period where a little speck of gluten doesn't touch your lips, and but I try to incorporate that stuff, and my general rule is I don't eat this is my day-to-day try to eat. No gluten, no dairy, no sugar, massive amounts of vegetables, as much as I can consume. And I do think that definitely helps with energy, like just consuming a ton of nutrients. I think that has to be helpful, because I've been converting a lot of my friends, and they're all finding that they don't get that afternoon crash.
Yeah.
If they do the massive, entire bag of spinach or entire thing of kale smoothie in the morning, I really do think there's something to that. Whether you can go so far as to say that it fixes everything, I think that's probably not likely for most people, but I do think that makes a massive difference. But I will eat pizza every now and then, and if you're at somebody's house, and in the beginning I didn't mind being catered to a little bit because I was so wanting to be strict and I didn't want to go on the drugs, and I was one of those people. But now that I'm a little bit less zealous about all of that.
Yeah, I think over time you realize that, because I was the same way. I mean, I remember I probably was introduced to the Direct MS website in 2007, like right very early on. And I remember early on, I mean, you're right. Like I was almost afraid of bread.
It just looks so unappetizing. Like your brain just goes, that's poison.
Yeah, and then now. I'm fairly good. I would say that in an average week, I'm probably 95, 97% pretty clean. But there are times where, especially when I travel, and that's probably part of the reason why I start feeling bad when I travel, is because it's so hard to try and keep up with it. What I have come to realize, I think, about all the diet stuff is that, MS is all about inflammation. It's a disease of inflammation. And, when you start eating badly and you start eating poorly and, a lot of processed sugar and stuff, your body just gets, it gets inflamed. And I think that's what those diets are trying to help with, right? So.
But one thing, please tell me whether I can eat beans. This is just like, it just makes me crazy.
You know what? When I go to Mexico, the refried beans down there are unreal, and I eat them. I think you can in I think everything in moderation would be my answer to that, because I think the reasons why beans were put on the sort of no-fly list is because they're in the soy family, and same thing with peas. Like, my kids love peas, and I generally won't eat them, but if they're in something, I don't pick them out because I don't mind them, but they're on the list, right? So my feeling is, I mean, if you feel like beans, eat some beans. Just don't eat them every day, right? I mean.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because I was there. There's been a study recently about the cultures that live the longest around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them are pretty bean heavy.
Well, it seems like everything you do, somebody else tells you it's wrong. And I remember when I was training for the run last year, my neuro that I use now, that I'm with now, he ran with me, and he was telling me about the gels that you use and the electrolyte tabs and stuff. So, which do really help. And I did mention to a lot of the people I knew, like, if you somehow hear that this stuff is bad for me or it's going to make my eyes bleed or something, don't tell me. I don't want to know, because it's helping me right now. This is just a quick edit. I had to edit the audio here. It got pretty bad, so I had to cut a chunk out. So where we're at in the conversation, what you're about to hear, we were talking about developing other conditions, and Kathleen was mentioning how she's at the age where some of her friends are also starting to develop other things. So just to catch you up. Probability. Now, you know what? I shouldn't say this because this is going to come back to bite me
Knock some wood.
Yeah. But probability-wise, I mean, the chances of me getting another serious condition are less because I've already got one. I mean, most people don't get multiple, right? Now, I say that and watch I'll get diagnosed with something else next week, but that's why, like I said, I don't know. I feel like if I can handle this, then life will just continue. It just keeps going on, right? So.
Yeah, and if you do get something else, you've already had bad news, so you do really learn how to cope really quickly. Like, if I think about how I felt the 3 weeks after, there were particularly a couple days in a row, I was, crying, snot coming out of your nose in the tub, praying that, this isn't happening. And then something just kicks in, right? And your brain just goes, okay, well, we're going to sort this out.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be the same if something else happened. I mean, there are things that are much, first of all, there are manifestations of this condition that are much more serious. And there are things like ALS that are just, that doesn't even compare,
Mm-hmm. Look, I think you're bang on. I mean, I'm still able to have a family. I'm still able to do, stuff like this. I'm still able to run. I mean,
kids are healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They get vitamin D every day. There's, they're growing up in a gluten-free, dairy-free household. We could bubble wrap them all we want, but it still could happen, right? So, but the biggest thing is I don't want them growing up being scared. And my daughter's she'll be 5 in May, and she's now aware that Dad has something that's called MS, but she's not really sure what it is.
Yeah.
But it'll just be normal for her. It won't be. I shouldn't say it won't be a big deal, but it won't be. She'll just have grown up with it, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. But another question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So where are you on, because I think this is very interesting, and I know it's been talked about a lot over the last probably 2 years, around the microbiome stuff, about that kind of philosophy around the microbiome, and that it's actually everything manifests from your gut rather than from your brain. So it's all the Terry Walls stuff.
Yeah,
right?
I would say that I would have a lot of time for it. And the reason why I have time for it is not necessarily the most scientific reason. I would just say that when I'm eating poorly, I feel poorly.
Yeah.
My outlook is poor, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And when I train to run, if my diet's out of sync, my training's out of sync. So just that mental exercise alone gives it credence in my mind. It would suggest to me, and it's just like I've been learning when, again, when I'm training, if I get a craving for a specific meal, where it's just ironclad in my head, I have to eat an egg salad sandwich, just as an example. I've stopped doubting my body. Because there must be a reason why my body's craving that particular thing. There must be a nutrient, a mineral, a compound, something in there that it needs to, do whatever it's doing. And I think so much so many of the issues that we see, I was having coffee with a guy today, and we were talking about running. It was a meeting for the run. And we were talking about, he's like, what do you really enjoy most about when you're out running? And I said, well, when I'm out running by myself, and if I'm on the pass and I see kids running, like teenagers and that really makes me happy, because kids are, lack of a better way of putting it, kids are fatter than they were when I was a kid.
Absolutely.
And there's so much more of the prevalence of behavioral problems and hyperactivity and ADD and all these other things. And going back to what you were asking me about, well, is it because of what we're putting in our mouth, right?
Absolutely. Well, my mom said when I was a kid, like, not only did you have to feed me like regularly, but it had to be good food. Mm-hmm. Like, you'd have to feed me. And my sister, not as much, mm-hmm. but I think some people are super, super sensitive to what they take in. And I think most people do better when they eat well, mm-hmm. to be fair. But yeah, some of us are just much more sensitive to what we take in.
Well, one of the things I found really, really fascinating, when I read Dr. Wells's first book, and she was mentioning, or was it in the TED Talk? It was one of the two, where she had a line where she said something to the effect of, by eating that quantity of vegetables every day and getting all the proper nutrients and stuff. And then she was saying how there may be compounds in there that science hasn't even identified yet that your body needs.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and because they discover new stuff all the time, right? The fats we weren't supposed to eat, a couple of years ago, now we're supposed to be eating them again, right? It just changes all the time, and I think that, I have all kinds of, I just know from personal experience, and I think most people do, if they're really being objective about it, when they're eating better, they're probably exercising more, and they're probably feeling better. Mentally, they're better. Physically, they're better, right? There's a correlation between them.
Well, it makes sense that you're made up of vitamins and minerals and water, and so it makes sense that if you're putting in higher quality food, that you're going to feel better. Like, that doesn't seem like rocket science. So. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, like I said, I've got not all, but I've got a chunk of my friends on, the morning veggie smoothie, and that people have really said that has made a significant difference to their day to do that. My Vitamix, I almost have like a romantic relationship with it. I love it so much. It's one of my favorite things on the face of the earth. It's my Vitamix, which is a bit sad, really.
Well, I wouldn't call it sad, but I mean, one of my favorite things to eat in the morning now is kale and eggs. Like, and people think, why would you eat kale in the morning? Because you get it out of the way.
Absolutely. And when you blend it, you can take in a load of it. Mm-hmm. Absolute load of it. And most people, my smoothies are not, you got to work up to them because they're pretty leafy. Mm-hmm. But once you get people used to them, I used to have a flatmate in London who, I love him to pieces, but he didn't always have the best diet, and I would deliver a smoothie into his bedroom every morning. Here you go, and it made a huge difference. So, yeah, and I don't care. I've said this to people. I don't care if a lot of this stuff. I don't care if it's a placebo. If the placebo effect is working on me,
right?
Happy days, right? I don't care if people think I'm full of crack. If I feel like it's working and if I feel better, then I'm signed up.
Yeah. So what And I do believe. I mean, obviously, we know from science that the placebo effect is real, and and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. All the stuff that I've tried over the years, it's very possible, and I can concede that it's very, very likely and very possible that my MS may have run this course exactly the same anyway, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But why not try?
And it's how you feel about it that really matters more than anything, right? And if whatever you can do to feel better about it, knock yourself up. Maybe not drink your face off. That might not be the strategy that you want to employ, but otherwise, if you're doing things that are healthy and good for you, and even if people think they're a little bit crazy when you're making your massive amounts of bone broth and sauerkraut and all the hippie things that I'm trying to do, it's all good for you.
Yeah, no, we actually just had sauerkraut and sausages for dinner last night, and it was it's become a regular, and the kids love it. So if they're eating it, it's not it can't taste that bad if my kids are eating it.
Exactly.
Right.
Absolutely. So. And it's kind of fun to experiment with things. I've made some things that are pretty awful, for sure, when you're just focusing on vegetables. But
actually, I'll email you the name of a cookbook that we like that was worked out really well for us.
Oh, good. Please.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Yeah. No, that'd be really helpful.
Yeah. Now, I do have to get running here in a few minutes, but I wanted to ask you before we go. Well, first off, thank you so much for doing this.
No, thank you. I've really enjoyed your podcast. I found so interestingly, I think you started your podcast as this was happening to me.
Oh.
Because when did you start?
Was it the first one when it came out? I don't know, probably September, October, somewhere in there. I don't know. You know what? I'll look. I'll tell you.
What year? Of this year?
No, 2015. Yeah, it was of 2015.
No, because I was listening to you definitely in the summer, quite shortly after this started happening to me. So it really corresponded. So you really have been a part of my journey, whether you like it or not.
Well, that kind of I think that's really awesome and it's kind of scary at the same time.
Really, really helpful.
No,
have, people who are, despite challenges, are doing just fine.
Okay, the very first one would have came out in July. There you go.
Yeah, and I think I was. Yeah, I think I was still. Was I off work? I may have been back by then. But yeah, so in the mornings, as I was getting ready, you'd put a new one out and I would put it on. My little flatmate would come out and he's like, oh, she's listening to one of her gurus again.
I think that would be the first and last time anyone ever refers to me as a guru, but I'll take it.
You're welcome.
No, it's one of those things that, what really came out of the run for me last year, and I don't know if I've talked about the story or not, but honestly, that run wasn't supposed to be as big as it was. I honestly just wanted to raise money for my MS bike team, and I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm just being honest. I was trying to raise $5,000 for my bike team, and I thought it would just be my dad on his mountain bike and following me, and then have maybe my mom running us supplies as we need it throughout the day. And it grew into this thing, and I had the blog since 2013 or 2012, something like that. And yeah, it just kind of all of a sudden, I wouldn't say a lot, but a number of MSers reached out to me, and similar to you, would email me and ask me like, well, how do you do this, or how did you feel about this, um, and and then there was, yeah, it was just a really, really cool experience, and the coolest experience of that whole run, and I hope she's listening. She'll listen to this one as I consider her a friend now. This lady named Sandra. She got a hold of me, and she told me how the blog and everything really had an impact on her, and what I was doing with the run had an impact on her, and you never, I guess, well, I never intended for that to happen, but it was the coolest thing. Like, yeah, we raised a lot of money and stuff, and that was great. But the coolest thing, what came out of it, was the interactions like the one we're having tonight, and interactions with Sandra and that, and because I think everyone needs to feel like they're part of a bigger community, right?
Absolutely, and it's the power of good intentions, right?
Mm-hmm.
People know that you're trying to do something good, and it's nice if people want to be a part of that, want to get involved with that. Speaking of which, what is the date again?
May 14th.
When is it?
May 14th.
May 14th. Because I may be able to convince one or two of my runner friends. My friend's husband in particular is always up for a challenge and always up to do, like, he did that barefoot running thing for a while, like he's always wanting to push really far. So I keep meaning to talk to him about this and say, I have a challenge for you. Yeah,
and when you talk to him, I'll let him know. I mean, last year, people ran 5, 10, 20, and about 3 people ran 40.
That's amazing.
And how it worked is I started running at 5 in the morning, and as I ran, people ran for a bit, then they left, but I kept running. And then,
How many kilometers is a marathon?
40. Is it 42? I think it's 42 or 43, yeah.
And where did you get to? You got to 70?
77, yeah.
What was the goal, 80?
Yeah.
Wow, that's spectacular.
Yeah, no, I had to shut her down with about 5K to go, and because I was so badly dehydrated, so I was at 70 some odd kilometers when I stopped, and so they drove me to with about 500 meters to go, and then I ran the final 500, and
did you feel okay about that? Did you feel like you achieved enough with that? I mean, because most people can't do that.
The way I look at it is I ran almost 2 marathons in the same day. I was short of my goal. I was short of the goal running-wise. The run far exceeded any of my expectations as far as fundraising, the impact it had, the interaction I had with... and this may sound strange too, but I didn't really have a lot of interaction other than like comments and stuff on the blog with other MSers prior to the run. So it was a complete success overall. It's just that next year I won't be stopping. I'm making it the whole way. One of the podcasts, it was 3 or 4 podcasts ago, it was a guy named Chris T. He's a pretty high profile trainer here in Edmonton. He volunteered to train me this time. So I meet with him every Friday morning, and he's actually going to run the full 80 with me. Yeah. Him and a girl named Jen, they're going to run the full, and they have a higher profile around town in sort of the fitness community, and I'm looking forward to it. It sounds weird to looking forward to running for 12 hours, but it was such a, if you have the chance to even come out just to
cheer.
Yeah, it was a really cool day, and it was really it was really amazing because all these people I'd never met before just said, hey, can I run? Can I do this? Can I do that? And it was a really, really cool experience. So I'm happy to do it again, and as long as the body's willing, I'll keep doing it every year until I can't. So
That's great.
Yeah. So,
Awesome.
but Kathleen, thanks so much again for doing this. We'll keep in touch, obviously.
Very nice to meet you finally.
Yeah. Oh, it's weird when you interact with people sort of on an MS level. You forget. Well, actually, I've never actually met her in person before. So.
That's true.
But no, that's great. So we'll keep in touch, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. So there you have it. That's episode number 12 of the YEG MS podcast. Our first ever episode with a listener turned guest. I think it's pretty cool. Kathleen, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I really, really enjoyed our talk, and I know we'll be in touch in the future, and I sincerely apologize that this is out later than I hoped, but I always say better late than never. And once again, Dave from the Oilers Rig and the Oilers Rig website, Dave, thanks for talking to me, and thanks for putting on the event this Friday night on the Rocks. Once again, if anybody in Edmonton or in the Edmonton area or is going to be in Edmonton is interested in going, they can go to the Oilers Rig website at theoilersrig.com. That's theoilersrig.com. There's a banner ad there you click on. It says the Oilers Rig Live for MS. It takes you to the ticket page. I think tickets are $12. They're auctioning off some pretty cool stuff. The venue's really cool. So yeah, I hope that I will be there. My wife will be there, and I hope to see lots of people that listen to this out too as well. So. One other thing, again, this Wednesday, Edmonton Examiner, there's supposed to be an interview featuring me. That's the last I heard. I mean, if it doesn't show up, then there's egg on my face there. But no, I think that there's supposed to be an interview featuring me in the Edmonton Examiner on Wednesday of this week. And as always, if you want to be a part of the podcast, if you want to be like Kathleen and be a listener turned guest, just email me or tweet at me or Facebook me, whatever your preferred mode of communication is. You can email me at sean@ownmultiplesclerosis.com. That's SEAN at ownmultiplesclerosis.com. You can tweet at me at ownms.com1 on Twitter. You can find ownmultiplesclerosis.com on Facebook. You can find the Really Long Run to End MS page on Facebook. If you want to donate or be a part or join my Really Long Run team, you can go to reallylongruntoendms.ca. You can donate there. You can join the team. If you want to be part of the run, if you want to volunteer or run or just come out, again, you can email me, sean@ownmultiplesclerosis.com. And for my next episode, I've already actually taped the audio for that one. We have Andre. Andre is the community manager for Sport Check here in Edmonton. But he's got a really, really cool and really inspiring story. So check that out in March. I certainly hope to have the March episode online earlier than I did the February episode. Once again, I apologize, but life happens. So anyway, until next time, we'll talk to you soon.